بدأت الحكاية منذ مئات السنين بين القبائل العربية في صحراء الجزيرة القاحلة، عندما تولد عشق بين الجواد والفارس. ورغم كل الظروف القاسية استمرت شعلة التلاحم بينهم حتى يومنا هذا. وقد حظيت الخيل العربية على مر السنين برعاية إلهية سخر فيها العديد من عشاق الخيل الذين حافظوا على هذا الإرث العتيق جيلا بعد جيل من المشرق إلى المغرب.
We were thinking, you and I, about new breeders in comparison to old breeders, or breeders of today versus breeders of yesterday. What are the differences in terms of finding the information, the differences of the horses which are available? Is it easier? Is it harder to start today than it was before? We discussed also the issues of the availability of the information, the availability of the people to help you, to guide you.
Well, of course, it's completely different today. First of all, there's a lot more horses. When we began, there wasn't a straight Egyptian horse. There were Arabian horses in Egypt.
Yes.
And the nucleus, of course, was there, El Zara. In those days, the only book that was available was Dr. Ashub's herd book of 1948, which had a list of all the horses up until I think it was 1946 or 48. So there was really very little other than that and some of the Raswan books with a few pictures to be able to study, to even get an idea of what these different families were, or what the qualities were, or what was even left in Egypt. And in the United States and in Europe, there were very few straight Egyptians. There was Marbach and a few private breeders. In the States, there was Babson, and even he was starting to breed to a Crabbit stallion, and thus his straight Egyptian program would have gone completely away if we had not realized that this nucleus of Egyptian horses that we had seen in Egypt, and when they were starting to be imported to the United States, that people would not realize the value of those bloodlines, and would start mixing them again, so we would lose it all over. Mm-hmm. And that's when we started the Pyramid Society. So at that time, when I started, there wasn't even a copy machine. I copied everything by hand.
There was no copy machine?
There was not a copy machine. I remember the first copy machine I bought was in Lufkin, Texas, which was, I think, in 1973 or 4 or 5. Then, before we used to have carbon paper and mimeograph machines.
Yeah.
I mean,
the one you put between the sheets.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just hard to believe, to go back. I remember when Gulsen Sharif and I were working on the Abbas Pasha manuscript and translating it, I had a typewriter. It was a manual typewriter, and a copy was made with carbon paper and so on. So the technology today, plus the fact that there are so many more good horses to choose from in selecting for a breeding program than there were at that time. Now there's so much more information available. You can go online to find what you need. There's faxes, there's emails, there's social media. Everything is at your fingertips. So
should that make it easier, or is it more confusing?
Well, I think it's a little of both.
Oh.
it's easier to find the information you want if you know what to look for. And that's where I think a book is very important, where you can sit down and look at a book and you see pictures and you can see a consistency, and if the author knows anything and as a breeder and has good information, there's a lot to learn from a good book. And you can apply that also when you're looking for further information on social media. But to just accept what people say on social media, so many people are wannabes. And I find that much of the information is misinformation. So you have to be careful where you begin. And of course, you have to, I think, first of all, love the horse. If you don't love having a horse, there's no point in beginning.
Yeah.
Some people get in it for ego and go out and just buy something and sell it. Well, those people come and those people go. They're not breeders. A real breeder devotes many years, and some, very few, devote a lifetime to it.
Yeah.
So it depends on what a young person or a new person, no matter their age, wants to do in becoming involved. It takes all kinds to make the Arabian horse community, to make it go around. There's breeders, there's trainers, there's helpers who look after the horses, who manage farms. There's just so many aspects to owning a horse, and what one is able to afford these days. It's very expensive. Good help is hard to find, especially in America. That's one of the big problems. The technical age has taken the interest in many different things, rather than in the past people were more interested in horses and riding and so on. So there's more choice today for leisure time. But I think every age has its assets and its problems. So what one experienced in the past and sees with certain eyes at that time, new people coming in today are excited and see with different eyes, and they have a lot more to choose from. The consistency in the breeding programs and the quality of the horses in general has improved, I think, considerably from when we first began.
If you would start today, I mean, with all the information that you know, if I would like to start today, how would you help me? Let me see. What would you advise me to do?
Well, the first thing I think I would advise you to do is to read some history of the breed, to get so you understand what is the standard of the breed, the general standard. Of course, there's variations within type,
Yes.
but to get some education first. Don't just run out and find the first pretty thing that you see and decide that I'm going to buy that. Educate yourself a little bit. Go to some of the breeding farms. Talk to the breeders. Talk to successful breeders. How did they develop their program? Go to some horse shows. So you begin to have an eye. It's kind of like going to art galleries. You begin to see certain pictures or certain painters that you are attracted to. Same thing with the horses. Certain breeders have a certain type. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. So that's all part of education.
Developing a taste.
Developing a taste, understanding how that breeder got the type of horse that he got, if that's what you like. And if you don't like it. Also, I found when I first began, by taking a lot of photographs and studying the photographs, particularly the families, and lining them up from one generation to the other, you begin to see a certain pattern in type or certain body patterns that maybe 5, 6 generations ago are still with us today. But that takes time. That takes a lot of time. And you have to be willing to put in the time. If you want to be a successful breeder, if you just want to buy something to show, then you still have to spend some time and understand what you're buying if you want something that you're going to go out and enjoy and have fun with. And that's a good thing too. That helps keep interest in the breed, supporting the different activities. Maybe it's endurance, maybe it's riding, maybe it's dressage, whatever. So I think the most important thing is to educate yourself, because without some kind of education, it's very difficult not to make mistakes, and you're going to make mistakes anyway.
Would you, if you start today, would you choose the same strains of horses that you chose many years ago? Did you stick still with the Saklawi and the Dahman?
I never had a prejudice against any of the strain.
Not prejudice, but I mean, from your experience, would you say, okay, the Saklawis and the Dahman did very well, and you've seen it all around? Would you add another strain on top of that, or would you still stick with the same?
Well, we did primarily the Daman and the Saklawi, but you have to consider also the aspect of the Hadban in there, because there was a great deal of that through Nazir. Definitely, I would, and remember, we were a small farm.
Yeah.
We had to make choices. If you're small, you have.
But you were small at the beginning.
At the beginning, and we did add. We did add. I mean, we used all the strains.
Yes.
Because I was interested to see and to experiment here and there. But our core was always the Daman and the Saklawi, and that's always what seemed to work best for us, other than I particularly did like adding in the Hadban. And of course, the Arabian worked beautifully with us. I mean, you take the Noggle herd, which was built a lot on that, and then also in the States we had the lines from the Rumanaj Ali and so forth and so on, Bit Megiddo, another different branch. So all of those were very useful, but there again it depended on what individuals were available to use. And today there's a lot more available than there were at that time, because time has marched, more horses have been created, you have a wider gene pool to work with, and better horses. So no, I would not limit it to that, but I would say that the Daman would still be my foundation, because that was always the strain on which was consistent and easy to build upon.
I wanted to discuss with you maybe tomorrow the Beit al-Arab thing. How did you, what you did for Beit al-Arab, choosing the horses for Beit al-Arab, and the trip that Osama took with Muhammad al-Qatami to you too, and then you went around. I would like to talk about that if possible.
Yeah, they didn't even get in a fight.
No, they did not. They did not. And one thing we want to discuss, also we discussed yesterday, was the books and the literature and the films, and then we'll get into the Bint Bukra film. But that one will shake us.
What books?
Your books.
Oh.
Your books and your literature and the films, and then we'll come to the latest book. But that one we'll do with also Sarah. So we'll do the Bint Bukra. And we wanted also talk about the art and the Arab horse. What do you think of that? Because you kind of hit on that in your Hijazi book a little bit. And Beit al-Arab is doing a new book on Arabian horse and art.
And I'm going to do a little bit in this book, but basically relating to sculptures and paintings or drawings that relate to Bint Bukra or her family.
That would be very nice.
Not a lot, because there's not a lot, but there is some very interesting, Ghazal, for example. And
there is. I have one from Ghazal. I'll show it to you. Maybe I'll bring it to you.
The head?
Domkin.
The Domkin head of Ghazal, watercolor?
It's a watercolor head, yes.
Yeah, I have that.
You have that?
Yeah. Muhammad's got one, and
Muhammad has several. He has several.
And he has the old Bukra watercolor. I have several from Domkin.
Yes, and there's a nice one done by the German lady who does pencil now.
Oh, Heidi Frank.
Very nice one.
Of Ghazal?
No, of Bukra, Bint Bukra. Nice one of Bint Bukra. Muhammad has that, I think.
A Bint Bukra?
I think so, yeah.
I was thinking of having her do one. She did one for me, and we had our 50th anniversary.
Bint Bukra and a saddle on the floor, a saddle on the ground.
No, this is Bint Bukra with her face. I know the photograph she took it from, and Bart had it done for us on our 50th anniversary. He wanted to know the 3 favorite mares at that time, so it was Bukra, Bint Bukra,
yes,
Bint Mabruka, and Samantha.
Yes.
And they were all 3 in one frame, which is really very nice.
That
so
I haven't seen.
I didn't know that nobody else has one. But I was thinking of having her do one of Bint Bukra, but if you have one of her.
No, I don't have that one. I think I've seen it in Muhammad's place. I'll check it out. I'll check it out for you. But I'll let me see the one from Ghazal. Let me see what I have today.
Yeah, if you would, because Muhammad had I gave him the Domkin watercolor of
I've seen
Bukra
those.
herself.
Very nice.
Kind of, you know, Domkin was a bit heavy in his interpretations.
Yes.
But anyway, Anthony had a copy made for me, so I'm going to put that in. It'll be a nice section, you know, not huge. It's not going to be a huge book, but it's growing.
You'll never know. Then we'll discuss, I want to discuss your relationship with many breeders and farms. Babson, Imperial, Nagel, Glenlock, Arabian, Ajmal, if you had any, maybe a Shakap, depends, or any other.
Oh yeah, I mean, had a big.
Britzlaff, Dunford, any others?
No, not them. Some didn't really have a relationship with them and also Qasimi, Dr. Sheikh Sultan.
Al-Qasimi, yes.
Al-Qasimi had, you know, sold him quite a few horses.
Yes.
Was involved
So
with
we'll
him. Some of the
discuss that.
Saudis.
Yes, whoever you like to discuss. Omar is.
العديد من عشاق الخيل الذين حافظوا على هذا الإرث العتيق جيلا بعد جيل من المشرق إلى المغرب.